I think it's pretty well understood that all carpenters are funny. Well, not all carpenters. So Ryobi power tools are oftentimes half the price of a more reputable professional grade tool, which begs the question, do they suck? What I've done here is I've gone around from friends and family and I've gathered up kind of the 6 most common types of homeowner power tools that Ryobi makes. So we're going to take a look at each of the 6 tools. I'll give you my honest opinion. As well, we're going to compare them to my more professional grade tool, and I'll give each of the tools a score out of 1 to 10 so you'll know exactly how good the tools are. So let's have a look at the Ryobi 18 volt drill and impact driver kit. You might not think you need an impact driver, but once you have one, you'll realize that you do. We're going to compare it as well to the Makita 18 volt impact driver and the Milwaukee 18 volt drill. So now the first thing to consider with pretty much any tool is the ergonomics. How does it feel? How does it handle? Both these are pretty similar. They do have some nice rubberized molding. Feels pretty good in your hand. The thing that I don't really like about both of these drills is they're pretty poorly balanced. They're very top heavy. They come with the 1.5 amp batteries. And if you try to get the balance on these things, they're very top heavy, which is just like if you're gonna be building a deck or using them all day long, it's gonna be pretty fatiguing holding on to these things. So whereas if you look at the Makita or even the Milwaukee, both these units here, the balance on them is superb in both cases. And then kind of looking at the fit and finish of these drills, you know, the switches they're not bad. They've got a nice little rubberized piece on this speed switch. The clutch on the drill, you know, it moves around quite nicely. The Jacobs chuck on the drill, I do like because it is a 1/2 inch chuck. They do have this little bit holder at the front. It's completely Mickey Mouse. The bits kind of fall in and out of there. So now if we're looking at the performance difference between these two impact drivers, by the way, are going to be super useful when it comes to, like, say you're outside building a deck, or if you're Scott Brown from New Zealand, a deck. I tested these out with a 4.5 inch lag bolt. They're both going to do the job. The Makita's slightly faster, even though it's quite a bit smaller. But for the average homeowner situation, this is going to have more than enough power. Another little thing here is the Makita has a beautiful little hook on it. So you can set that on your pocket, do what you're going to do with your hands, then grab the drill, and it's right there. There's no kind of an allowance or anywhere to screw one of those clips on for this Ryobi drill. So on a scale of 1 to 10, for these Ryobi 18 volt drill and impact driver, I definitely don't hate these tools. If I went over to my buddy's place and this is all he had, I'm not going to complain. They're not bad at all. Scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give them a 5.5 out of 10. Let's talk hedge trimmers. So we're going to have a look at the Ryobi 40 volt hedge trimmer that I borrowed from my mother-in-law, and then we'll compare it to my 18 volt Makita hedge trimmer. So with the Ryobi 40 volt, the batteries on here are fairly substantial. The overall ergonomic design of this thing is not great. It's fairly heavy. It's about 2 pounds heavier than the Makita, which if you're going to be trimming a hedge, you're going to be holding on to this thing for quite a while. Like with this Ryobi hedge trimmer, you're not going to be able to hold that and reach out. Say if you're trying to get the top of a hedge and you need to reach over and get the top. With the Makita, I mean, it's not like it's going to be super easy, but I've done it plenty of times where I'm at the top of the hedge and I'm just reaching over and trimming like that. So that's a nice advantage for the Makita. Kind of the overall sleekness and design of the Makita is preferable as well. And then like when you go to set the thing down, it sets down nice. With the Ryobi, it's kind of a weird design. It's just got this little nub on the bottom and it wants to tip over all the time. Not a huge deal, but it's kind of annoying. If you want to know the biggest difference in quality between these two, you can probably pick that up from just listening to them. Listen to the Ryobi. And when you fire this thing up, it's kind of rattly. Compare that to the Makita. This is a precision machine. So now for the Ryobi, on a scale of 1 to 10, I definitely prefer the Makita. It is a lot nicer to use. It cuts nicer, it sounds better, and you can just do a bit nicer of a job. But the Ryobi gets the job done. I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 10. Let's talk blowers. Now this is where things get interesting. The rubber meets the road into some philosophical questions. Are these Ryobi tools going to ruin your life? So the way that this 18 volt Ryobi blower came to be, I bought it for my in-laws a couple of years ago. They saw me using the little Makita and they were like, wow, we'd like to have some of that blower magic at our place. So I went out and I got them the 18 volt blower. They already had a few Ryobi tools, so they were into the battery platform. And I still remember the first time I got it over there, I charged up the batteries, I wanted to test it out, and got the thing blowing out on the back sidewalk. Just bitter disappointment. This thing is not powerful enough to really be useful. In terms of wind speed measurements, this thing blows at about 6 meters per second from kind of 1.5 meters away. This is 8 meters, so about 30% more power in the little Makita blower, and it makes a huge difference. Like if you're gonna get into some serious yard work, you're gonna wanna get one of the giant blowers with 2 batteries in the Makita platform. But yeah, just for like blowing out the garage, cleaning yourself off, blowing your tools off. So now when it comes to the 18 volt Ryobi, this thing's a bit of a piece of crap. It's not really gonna do what you would want it to do. Yeah, it can kind of blow things around a little bit, but if you've used the Makita or any kind of a real type of a blower, you're going to be disappointed with this. It's not going to perform the way you would want. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to go ahead and give this a 2. I definitely don't recommend it. Let's talk portable stereo. This is the little Ryobi 1 18 volt stereo. This is the Makita. Again, you can get this for about half the price of the Makita. Now the Ryobi unit here is not a bad little unit. It has a radio. You're going to be able to tune in local radio stations. The tuner's nothing special. But when it comes to the sound, this is where there's the big difference here. I played these for both my wife and my son, and they're like, this radio sucks compared to the Makita. The Makita, like you could take this thing to the beach, down to the river. You get this thing going in a house that you're working on, you got yourself a disco party breaking out. So when it comes to the Ryobi, not a bad little unit. Again, it's okay. It sounds pretty tinny for the size, and the price is all right. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna go ahead and give this thing like a 5 out of 10. It is kind of a nice little compact size. So I've spruced my hair up a little bit. Let's finish this thing off talking miter saw. Now this 10-inch Ryobi miter saw, you can get this thing on sale for like 99 bucks Canadian. The Festool, on the other hand, is 20 times more expensive. So there's not really a whole lot of use in comparing the two. This saw is superior in almost every fashion, but the question remains for the average homeowner or DIY person, is this saw going to get the job done? Is it worth spending the 99 bucks? Originally, I purchased this saw as kind of a backup saw that I could take to the job site, and I wouldn't mind just leaving it there because it's pretty cheap, it's lightweight. But in reality, using this saw, it kind of goes against everything that I value in tools. The miter gauge is not smooth whatsoever. There's a lot of slop in any of the detents, so it's not very accurate. The dust collection, like I like to hook up a vacuum for dust collection. The design here is terrible. It doesn't collect virtually any dust. The blade guard's all right. You can see through it. You can hold it out of the way fairly easily. It is a little bit askew, which kind of throws off your orientation for lining things up. And the thing that ultimately led to me really hating this saw and giving it away to one of my friends is the startup. This thing starts incredibly hard. There's not a lot of mass to this saw, so the actual whole body will actually twitch a little bit. And when you're doing some type of a cut, say you want to notch out like a baseboard or a casing or something like that, you might be holding it on a bit of an angle and making a little bit of a precarious cut. This thing will just lurch, and it makes it very dangerous. So if I was a homeowner, would I buy this saw? I definitely wouldn't. I would look for something like the 10-inch DeWalt or the Rigid or Makita saw. They're going to be twice the price, probably like 200, 250 bucks Canadian. I don't recommend this saw. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give this Ryobi 10-inch saw a -3. So do Ryobi power tools suck? Well, they kind of do, but I totally understand why the average homeowner or beginner DIY grabs a Ryobi. The battery platform is one of the biggest of all the battery platforms, and the price, it's half the price of pretty much any of the more reputable tools. So yeah, Ryobi tools are not for me. Every time I use them, a little piece of my soul dies. But I'm a professional tradesman and I have an extremely high standard when it comes to tools. And hey, if you're looking for some good tips to improve your own home, these are my best tips right up here. These things always sound funnier when I think them in my head. Then when it comes to saying them, it's like, not that funny at all.